Good evening, dear viewers. Thank you so much for joining me on this edition of the 6 p.m. primetime newscast on Equinoxe television. Our major stories tonight: human rights defenders denounce the blocking of former Minister of Employment and Vocational Training, Issa Tchiroma, from leaving the country, calling it blatant disregard for individual rights and freedoms. They argue that the presidential injunction on resigned member of government and presidential candidates is unjustified and undermines the democratic process. Away from that, we'll tell you how the Social Democratic Front SDF party is asking the elections organizing body, Elections Cameroon, to remove 1,153 polling stations found in palaces and military barracks to other places. The party seeks to ensure that the electoral process is transparent, free and fair, allowing Cameroonians to genuinely participate in choosing their next president. Away from that, the Constitutional Council opens on Monday, August 4th, the crucial phase of pre-electoral litigation of the October 12th presidential elections. 35 appeals, notably concerning the rejection of candidatures by LECAM, will be examined in the hearing at the Yaoundé Congress Center. What are expectations of Cameroonians? Find out in this news edition. Those are our top stories. The news in full in a jiffy. Thank you so much for choosing Equinoxe Television. For presentation, I am Immaculate Fogwe. The blocking of Issa Tchiroma, former Minister of Employment and Vocational Training, from leaving the country has sparked controversies in Cameroon's political circles. Some politicians view the restriction as justified, possibly due to his involvement in the country's socio-political issues. On the other hand, human rights defenders are criticizing the presidential injunction, particularly since Tchiroma is a presidential candidate and also a former member of government, as Innocent Aze tells us.
Issa Tchiroma, former minister of the Bia government and presidential candidate for the October 12 presidential election, was stopped at the Nsimalen International Airport in Yaoundé from boarding a morning flight to Dakar, Senegal on Thursday. The former minister was about leaving with his daughter purposely to pay allegiance to Amadou Ahidjo, first president of the Republic of Cameroon, with grave in the Senegalese capital. Unable to present an authorization from the Presidency of the Republic, a document required from members of government before they could travel abroad, airport security officials asked the resigned minister to make a U-turn.
Just because he resigned doesn't mean that he's not covered by that request. He had to, because he recently just resigned and he's still not been cleared up completely, so he cannot just go around and jump on the plane and go wherever he wants to. You know, he has to be decommissioned, so to speak.
Without any official explanation accompanying the travel ban on the resigned member of government, Issa Tchiroma, in a statement, denounced what he called clear proof that the current system fears the truth and desired transition.
Issa Tchiroma told lies. By virtue of the fact that he told a lot of lies, you don't know how many people have suffered because of his lies. President Paul Biya didn't say he should be telling blatant lies on his behalf. No, he never said that. He's just paying the price of telling lies.
Another political actor, Kacharel Fongang, brings forth this analysis.
I quite believe that, first of all, the government is not happy with the resignation as member of government. And moreover, after this resignation, we heard what Tchiroma said about President Paul Biya, that is no longer capable of even receiving his ministers, exchanging words with those who were his own alliance. The Sparrow Hawk operation is not also far. Sometimes these people misused the budget put at their disposal. But I believe that, considering the context, it cannot be this Sparrow Hawk, but the Sparrow Hawk operation is not very far from the decision taken by the President of the Republic.
An abuse of human rights as confirmed by Lucas, human rights advocate.
While this is indeed a gross violation of his human rights, freedom of movement, it should also be noted that the current regime in power indeed did so for some reasons best known to them. You may not be surprised to hear in a few days that Issa Tchiroma has a file in the office where it has to do with him, you know, as per the time he was a minister.
Issa Tchiroma will only have to seek authorization for his private trip to Dakar. If denied firmly, he will have no other option than focus on his plans of becoming the next president of the Republic of Cameroon.
The struggle for democratic reforms remains a major preoccupation in Cameroon as days narrow to the 2025 presidential elections in the country. In a public outing, the Social Democratic Front SDF party, opposition party, has denounced the placement of polling stations in palaces and military barracks ahead of the presidential election. The party, joined by civil society actors in Cameroon, argued that such locations violate electoral laws and undermines transparency, as Fomi Armstrong Sander tells us.
The Social Democratic Front SDF party argues that the placement of polling stations in palaces and military barracks violates electoral laws and undermines transparency.
When a polling station is in a military barrack, it is true, it is obvious that the polling agents that will be there will not freely. Who are those who vote in military barracks? So there's a polling station where only military people vote. So how will a military man freely vote the opposition in a polling station where they have said that only military people will go and vote? So who are those who vote in palaces? So you think that the fund will want that the ruling government should lose in his palace, especially some lamidos and so on? No.
The party has identified over 1,150 of these polling stations, calling on Elections Cameroon Elecam to do the right thing by delocalizing them to public places before October 12, 2025.
These places are places where people can be influenced or intimidated. And we can say, without mixing words, that if these polling stations are not delocalized, it means that there is a massive fraud that has been prepared by Elecam. A public place is a market, it's a school, it's a road. These are places. Are you telling me that there are no schools in Yaoundé for them to be putting polling stations in military barracks?
A worry qualified as legitimate by civil society actors in Cameroon.
Et une élection équitable, c'est une élection qui garantit.
Philippe Nanga of Ngmonde Avenue non-governmental organization says that the electoral code in Cameroon clearly spells out places where polling stations should be positioned, backed by international instruments guiding the electoral process.
Ou encore le pacte international relatif aux droits civils et politiques. On peut très bien vous interdire l'accès à une chefferie. Vous n'allez pas forcer.
Philippe Nanga says that this transparency can only be attained if polling stations are positioned in places with equal and free access.
Interdire l'accès à la caserne.
The Social Democratic Front SDF party has consistently demanded strict adherence to Cameroon's electoral code, including objections to voter suppression tactics and military voting in the Anglophone Northwest and Southwest regions. The political party's efforts reflect a broader struggle for democratic reforms across the Republic of Cameroon.
And we stay in politics. The Constitutional Council is set to examine 35 pre-electoral litigations, including double appeals filed by rejected presidential aspirants such as Professor Maurice Kamto of Manidem and Kisa Bertang of the CPSG party. Legal expert barrister Fabien Kernier provides insight into these double appeals, noting that while they may appear similar to the public, they have distinct legal implications, particularly in the case of Kamto. Barrister Kernier also highlights that the Electoral Code does not recognize multiple submission as a valid ground for rejecting a candidacy. Innocent Aze reports.
The Constitutional Council will finish examining and pass its verdict on 35 appeals filed by presidential aspirants for the rejection of their candidacies by Elecam for different reasons. Some of the voted aspirants filed double appeals, including Professor Maurice Kamto of Manidem and Kisop Belton of CPSG, bearing different reasons. According to a legal expert, some motives for the rejection of candidacies by Elecam are in contradiction with the presidential election adopted principles. No article of the Electoral Code or the Constitutional Council demands rejection of a candidacy on the basis of multiple submissions. Elecam has grossly violated the law.
Electoral ni dans la Constitution.
As the Constitutional Council examines the 35 appeals, Cameroonians in the country and around the world have their eyes fixed on the Constitutional Council, expected to be impartial in its verdict by applying the similar transparency gauge for political parties in the case of multiple candidacies filed. The Electoral Council of Elecam would have searched among the presumed double candidatures the one that is legal and abides to the conditions previewed by the law for eligibility, so that a flag bearer of a political party be eligible to participate in the election. On the subject of 35 appeals filed as the Constitutional Council, one of the curiosities stems from the double appeals filed by Professor Maurice Kamto. Appeals which from the first comprehension seem to bear the same motif, whereas the first appeal concerns that of his rejected candidacy on basis of multiple submissions. The second is a voluntary intervention with Jodene Yebga, who filed the second Manidem candidacy. The Constitutional Council has some days to trash the pre-electoral litigations and publish the definite list of candidates for the October 12 presidential election.
Innocent Azza reporting there, and with the Constitutional Council set to examine 35 appeals related to rejected candidatures, Cameroonians are eagerly awaiting the outcome, hoping it will lead to a fair and transparent electoral process. They are looking forward to a peaceful and credible election that reflects the will of the people. Babila Jonathan gathered the reactions of the people and compiled this report.
As the Constitutional Council begins examining the 35 petitions filed by political parties and individuals whose candidatures were rejected by Elections Cameroon, expectations arrive.
I expect that the Constitutional Council should do its job as well as possible, that to maintain peace in the country.
Nous espérons que the Constitutional Council should be transparent and say nothing but the law. The Constitutional Council should do its job in impartiality.
Impartial.
Nothing should be arbitrary, and let things be done professionally. Some are demanding that the candidatures of aspirants who fulfilled all requirements, including Professor Maurice Kamto, should be restored.
Nous demandons au Conseil constitutionnel.
We are asking the Constitutional Council to restore Kamto as candidate for the October 12, 2025.
12 octobre 2025.
Ce que je veux,
I want Kamto to be included. Once that is done, my problem is solved. Many are also expecting to follow up happenings at the Constitutional Council as they unfold on television. The session should be live and justice should be impartial.
Je souhaite que l'audience soit en direct.
I want the session to be live so that everybody can see what is happening in our country.
Le Cameroun, parce que c'est un peu de trop.
que l'audience soit en direct.
Like him, many do not expect any positive result from the Constitutional Council because, in their opinion, the judiciary is under the influence of the executive. However, there is hope.
On a espoir aux hommes parce qu'on se dit qu'ils ont quand même un cœur qui bat dans la poitrine.
40 years after the introduction of Paul Biya's governing philosophy of communal liberalism, Cameroonians are divided on its effectiveness. Critics argue that the philosophy has failed to deliver, citing widespread inequalities and conflicting realities in the country. Analyzing the decentralization, the state of law, and the democracy in Cameroon today, many who lived through the introduction of communal liberalism believe it has pushed the country backwards. Others, however, attempt to identify the pitfalls, and propose potential solutions, as Fomi Armstrong Sanda tells us.
Introduced in 1985 with a communal liberalism philosophy of President Paul Biya, was built on three major axes, notably democracy, state of the law, and decentralization. 40 years after, Cameroonians say that its effectiveness is disappointing, marked by conflicting outcomes and reality.
On n'a même pas franchi à un pas de ce qu'il parlait dans ce livre.
Freedom of speech. We don't have freedom of speech in Cameroon because if you say something which is right in front of the whole country, they'll come and arrest you in your house.
In the streets of the city of Douala, Cameroonians who lived the coming of communal liberalism say that their country has retrogressed.
Let me take the example. If you carry somebody in commissariat, when Rishi is there, the man has money more than you, they will release the man the same day and send you away.
Même les petits déchets dans la ville, on ne parvient même pas à rassembler, à ramasser.
In a more pedagogic approach, educationist, social entrepreneur and a CPTM party member, Dr. Nick Ngwanyam frankly explains what went wrong.
Democracy is not what puts food on people's plate. Democracy is a process that is used in the nation by the people to select those to whom they want to give power and authority to govern the nation. But if you give people the power and the people don't use the power to do the economics, that's to create wealth and to do the development, it will fail woefully, and that's why we are where we are today. Systems work based on three main things: number one, politics; number two, economics; and number three, development. And for these three things to work effectively, you have to have the right type of education, and the right type of education we are talking about should be the education which favors STEM, science, technology, engineering, arts, mathematics, entrepreneurship, and all these things, so that you can create wealth.
Proposing a broader way out, Dr. Nick Ngwanyam outlines a model that can be used to better the decentralization drive in Cameroon. For example,
a double-layer decentralization where we first of all break the nation into two big chunks, West Cameroon and East Cameroon. And then we go into each of those states and break them into their individual regions. For instance, West Cameroon will be made of the Northwest and Southwest, and then East Cameroon will be made up of the other 8 regions. But Yaoundé remains a capital city-state which belongs neither to West Cameroon nor to East Cameroon.
While Paul Biya's communal liberalism theoretically aims at an existence both free and community-oriented, its effectiveness remains contested by enduring inequalities and conflicts across the country.
And now we take the short note on education. The results of the June session of the Cameroon General Certificate of Examination, GCE, has been released today. According to statistics from this year, the ordinary level recorded a percentage pass of 78.56%. As for the advanced level, the recorded percentage pass of 79.38%. For the technical and vocational education examination ordinary levels, they recorded a 52.03% pass, while the seniors at the advanced level recorded a 71.19%. Away from education, we now talk human interest stories. The Melong-Bangam stretch of road has been a deplorable state, causing concerns for inhabitants and traders who use the route. According to local authorities, the contractor working on the road has faced difficulties finishing the road due to heavy rains. This isn't surprising given the region's weather patterns. We have details with Sericha Putio.
The Melong-Bangam stretch of road is in a very poor condition, causing difficulties for local residents, traders, farmers and transporters. This road, important for the region, is a major agricultural area producing crops such as plantain and cassava.
There are certain places that you cannot easily trespass. Either with passengers, they need to go down. Either you are carrying something, you need to drop the plantains. Drivers are really suffering, riders are suffering equally.
Nous on peut ôter les demi-chargements passer la route mauvaise. Jusqu'à là, on décharge tout en route. Comme je parle, il y a les endroits que nous on va les carrières, mais jusqu'à là, ça ne nous laisse pas. Nous on ne peut rien faire maintenant.
Due to this bad road, breakdown of vehicles, raising transport prices are common problems faced by traders and transporters in this part of the region.
No, the Palava road for Bangam.
This stretch of road is very difficult for us to move on. Every day we see contractors coming to work. After some time, we don't see them anymore.
Every day they day for road, they come for here, they sit down for road.
When we try to ask authorities questions, no one gives us an answer, so we don't understand what is going wrong.
5, 6, 10 years, only for one contract.
We traders really need some help. We are suffering to sell our goods.
To them, oh, now what did it happen? We don't know.
To local authorities, some sections of the road remain difficult to travel, particularly the Busom-Muyet section. They blame the contractor who finds difficulties finishing the road during this rainy season.
Bangam Melong Road is bad. It had to do with a particular spot just at the entrance into the town. And it concerns a road which presently is under contract. the Minister of Public Works gave out a contract, the road to be done. And I will say the contractor is in the field, but he hasn't finished his work yet. But as we all know, maintaining roads during the rainy season is not an easy matter. And maintaining earth roads is not very easy. You can maintain them now, do it properly, but after some heavy rains, it changes. So if the roads were tight, like in other parts of the country, we will be happier.
Local residents are drawing the attention of authorities to this situation ahead of the October 12 presidential elections.
Comme l'élection vient là, nous sommes tous, on est éligible de venir voter ici à Bangem. On n'a pas un bureau de vote là-bas chez nous.
To them, it is important that local authorities take measures to improve the condition of the road and facilitate trade in the region.
That's it for this first part of the news. Cameroon Today comes up next. Natives of Bimbe village in the Nyong and So division are calling on the government to construct a bridge which will serve as a link between the village and Balmayo, which is the headquarters of the division. For natives to leave Bimbe village to Balmayo, which could be covered within 30 minutes, they spend 2 days by water. On tonight's edition of Cameroon Today, we'll take you to discover the sufferings of inhabitants of Bimbe village. Smaji Kangable tells us more.
River Young is the natural boundary that separates Bimbe village and Balmayo in the Young and So division of the Central region.
Nous sommes à Bimbe.
We are in Bimbe, Zeng subdivision. On the right is Balmayo and left is Akonolinga. The fastest means to arrive in Balmayo is through the canoe, which is also the cheapest, with just 3,000 francs CFA. A canoe is the only means of transportation from Bimbe village to Balmayo for those who will want to challenge River Young. Using a canoe from here to Balmayo is at least 2 days on water. These are some canoes already getting bad. For someone who doesn't want to use a canoe, the person has to be courageous and be patient using the road, as it is a veritable nightmare. Traveling to Balmayo is very difficult for us. Going to Balmayo by road from here to Yaoundé is 4,000 francs CFA, while in Yaoundé you pay another bus to Balmayo. That if they made a bridge here, it will be easier for us to go to Balmayo. The population of Bimbe village say they want the construction of a bridge which will bring a lasting solution to their sufferings. We have a big challenge, which is the deviations we take to Yaoundé, and if you know how much we pay, each day the transport keeps increasing. Balmayo remains the main town for the people of Bimbe. When they have to sign an official document, the headache is enormous. If you have a problem of signing your documents in Balmayo, how are you going to do? That is what is disturbing us. It costs a lot because you pay 2,500 francs on bike. A car to Kwabang is 2,000. Then a taxi to Mvan is 500 before paying another 1,000 to Balmayo. When you have a convocation at 8 a.m., it is sure to be postponed. Passing through Yaoundé in the Mfundi division to Balmayo in the Young and So division, which is not far, the population of Bimbe village are now asking, when will their own development come? Before, there was a ferry, which is now bad. We need a bridge. It's only a bridge that can bring development to Nzem. Look at our brothers at the other end. I could even live here to meet up with them, to even drink a bottle of wine, but I have to go round to Yaoundé, which is long. This is a 30-minute journey when I take a bike from here. While waiting for a bridge that will link them to Mbalmayo, the natives are now requesting that they should be linked to towns closer to them, which are easily accessible. We don't have any bridge, and this is a very big challenge for us, and we don't even want the affairs of Mbalmayo. Better we are linked to Mfu. What are we going to do in Mbalmayo? Akonolinga and Mfu are close to us. In the health domain, the Integrated Health Center of Kumasi has already been linked to Mfu in the Mefu and Afamba division. The health center, which is in Kumasi, is now attached to Mfu, which is in the Mefu and Afamba division. Since it was difficult to bring vaccines here, they were forced to attach us to Mfu. We don't even see elites here. We see them only when they have their events. The people of Bimbe village are close to church, but very far from God, as the population go through difficulties to move to Mbalmayo, which is just a stone throw.
That's how we saw it on tonight's edition of Cameron Today. Talking Point comes up next. My guest tonight is NGUTY Herbert. He is a political analyst. Good evening. It's a pleasure to have you on Talking Point tonight.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to share my thoughts with Cameroonians.
NGUTY Herbert, what are the primary concerns of Cameroonians regarding the upcoming presidential elections, and how do they expect the Constitutional Council to address these issues?
Generally, Cameroonians are concerned about electoral transparency, fairness, and credibility. You know, most Cameroonians have lost trust in the institutions that are managing election in Cameroon, notably Electoral and the Constitutional Council. Some Cameroonians posit that the composition of the members of the Electoral Board, for instance, which is predominantly made up of ex-CPDM militants, limits the kind of trust that Cameroonians want to put on this institution. The Constitutional Council is not different. Members of this council were former militants of the CPDM. They are loyal to the CPDM, and as the adage goes, he who pays the piper determines the tune. And so because of this, most Cameroonians do not trust the electoral process. They do not trust the institutions that are managing the electoral process in Cameroon. Now, talking about the expectations of Cameroonians on the Constitutional Council and even on the Electoral, Cameroonians expect the Constitutional Council to act independently. It expects them to handle all petitions impartially, irrespective of who tenders the petition. And also it expects the Constitutional Council to uphold the Constitution. That is the primordial role of the Constitutional Council, to uphold the Constitution of the Republic of Cameroon. So all eyes are on the Constitutional Council and its leader, Clement Atangana. He should ensure that the Constitution of Cameroon prevails and that all petitions are considered with impartiality, because all eyes of Cameroonians are on the Constitutional Council, and Cameroonians expect a lot from him. Remember, they are dealing with people who have already lost trust in the system. They have already lost trust in the institutions managing the election. So they have an incumbent responsibility to rebuild this trust.
Now, Herbert, do you think televising the Constitutional Council's ruling will help enhance transparency and trust in Cameroon's electoral process at the moment?
It will be a significant step towards the transparency and democratic accountability. You know, when the public sees how legal arguments are being debated openly, when the public sees how decisions are being explained, in fact, it brings back the trust. It restores the trust that Cameroonians have lost in the entire process. And if you remember very well, in 2018, the ruling of the Constitutional Council was televised for everybody to see. That is what we see in other countries. In fact, in other countries, in developed democracy, the entire electoral process is being televised from the time where voters are casting their vote, from the time when votes are being counted, and even during the proclamation of the results, it is being televised. That is a giant step towards transparency, because there is nothing the government is struggling to hide. If the ruling of the Constitutional Council is not televised, it gives the impression that there is something that the government is struggling to hide. But if the government knows that she is not hiding anything from the public, those deliberations should be televised, and access should be given to everybody, all Cameroonians within the country and even abroad, to be able to witness this historic event. I call it a historic event because it has a direct bearing on the future of the country. The way Cameroon will be faring in the next months after October will depend on what transpires at the Constitutional Council. And it is good that Cameroonians across the board should witness this historic event.
Now, how likely is it that the Constitutional Council will accept the petitions seeking to disqualify President Paul Biya's candidacy? Let's recall that the CPDM militant and presidential aspirant Leon Tile Onana, whose file was rejected, claims that President Paul Biya can't go in for re-election given that the party's current leadership mandate has expired since 2011. What do you make of this, or what do you have to say about this?
Let me be very realistic with Cameroonians. Looking at the composition of the Constitutional Council, the members of the Constitutional Council, the way a majority of them being barons of the CPDM, many of them were former militants of the CPDM. The possibility of these petitions to be accepted, they are very low. They are very low simply because of the background of most of the members of the Constitutional Council. Most of them are appointees and they are loyal to the regime. So I think they will not be able to even accept such petition. However, if they decide to admit and accept this petition and even reject the candidacy of President Paul Biya, it will be a historic event and they will be inserted in the annals of history. Their children and their children's children will speak well of them, because I'm sure any Cameroonian of goodwill expects that they should look at these petitions impartially. Remember, that is what I said, that these petitions should be looked at impartially. They should not consider that, no, this one is against the incumbent. No, presently they are all candidates. He is no longer the president. He is a candidate like every other candidate. So if there is a petition against his candidacy, this petition should be looked at impartially. The possibility of it being accepted, my dear sister, it is not possible. If I want to be blunt, it will not be possible, because the possibility of accepting it, they are very, very low.
How might the outcome of the Constitutional Council's deliberations affect the dynamics of the election, particularly in terms of voter turnout and opposition party participation?
All right, the outcome of the Constitutional Council's ruling will have a direct impact. If the Constitutional Council's ruling is perceived to be fair, voters will be encouraged to turn out massively and cast their vote for their desired candidate. But if, on the other hand, the majority of Cameroonians perceive that the Constitutional Council's handling of the petitions is not fair, it will deter many voters from voting. It will encourage voter apathy, where voters who already are not even encouraged to vote will be given more reasons not to vote. It can even discourage opposition parties from voting, and it will encourage calls for boycotts. People will start saying that do not even turn out to vote. Don't vote for this election because the outcome is already evident. We already know how the result will be. They have shown us again through the Constitutional Council's ruling. And so the Constitutional Council is supposed to be very careful to know that the outcome of their ruling is very important. It has a direct impact on voters' turnout, such a way that if voters realize that they were fair, they were impartial, they were transparent, at least they will have some trust in the system and voters will turn out to vote. But if, on the other hand, they sense that their ruling were not transparent, their ruling were not impartial, their ruling was in favor of the regime, it will encourage voter apathy, where many Cameroonians will not want to take part in these elections. But that is not the desire of Cameroonians of goodwill. The desire of most Cameroonians is that those who have registered should turn out en masse to cast their vote and to vote for their desired candidate, to vote for a candidate that will bring the much desired change that Cameroonians are looking for.
Herbert, political analyst, thank you so much for your time. And that's what put a cap to today's edition of the 6 p.m. primetime newscast on Equinoxe Television. Big congratulations to all the successful GCE candidates. And for those who didn't make it, try again next time. Tomorrow might be your time. That's we say bye-bye from us to you. Have a wonderful weekend in the company of more programs on Equinoxe Television. Bye-bye for now.